the time. Could you talk specifically about why Common Core is better than what you had before? Why is it more rigorous?
The superintendent's going to.
Sure, absolutely. As was indicated in some of the previous speeches from my colleagues, we have had standards in the state of Ohio for many years. Standards are simply a basis for what you are going to create your curriculum on. The new Ohio standards are a much more rigorous form of standard. They are a standard that will enable our students to utilize critical thinking skills, to utilize problem-solving skills, to move forward. Where the old standards, I often use the term rote memorization. For many years in education, that was our expectation. We would ask students to memorize, and this is a silly example, but memorize your state capitals. That doesn't teach you how to solve problems. That simply teaches you how to memorize something. The new standards go much deeper and really provide students with the skills as they move forward in their educational careers or work careers to be successful throughout their lives.
Yeah, if I might add, in the process of the development, the National Governors Association, the Council of Chief State School Officers, and Achieve benchmark where we are in the United States with the rest of the world. And in a global economy, what are the things students in Ohio, students in the United States need to be able to know and do in order to compete? And so the Common Core standards are a reflection of the results of that work. It's not an arbitrary, Bob and I sat in a room, lit a couple cigars, and came out on Monday and said, this is what children in the United States need to know. It's a very rigorous process.
All research-based.
With regards to the efforts to repeal Common Core and the hearings this week, how much of this is about education? How much of this is about politics?
Kirk, I'll turn it to you, buddy.
Am I allowed to talk? In my estimation, I guess in my estimation, it does appear to be a little more political. Because when you claim, it seems that to a degree, some of the very people who supported those that put this together, now are stepping away and representing it as something that it's really not. So I think, in my opinion, it is a little more of a political issue. I think that we have a very deep concern as professional educators that if we were to step away from this for political reasons, a generation of students would miss out on a more effective, more important, more productive education. Because if we change course, there are a generation of teachers and educators that will be very hard to convince and very, in my opinion, very hesitant to accept and prepare to implement a new set of standards. To get from where we were in 2010 to where we are today, to provide students a more rigorous and a more meaningful education, was a long journey, and there is lots of blood, sweat, tears, as well as money that went into that. Lots of professional reputations have been leveraged to get the support needed at the local level to put these standards in play and provide students the opportunity to walk away with a high school diploma in this state that means far more than it did 4 years ago. And that, to me, is the greatest fear. That's a generation of students that miss out, and a generation of educators that we're going to have to work real hard to convince that the next set of standards that might be proposed aren't subject to the same process. We need to stay the course.
Is it your understanding that the Ohio teacher evaluation system would have to be completely revamped if a new set of standards come in, or can it be adapted to something other than Common Core and the other new learning standards?
I guess anything can be adapted. I think it would be difficult because all the preparation and all the conversations that have been held revolve around the standards that we know are in place now, and the assessments we know are going to be implemented moving forward. I think it's kind of the same concern. And now think about that. When you layer not only my work and how that works, but now you're going to add evaluation of my performance and potentially job security onto that. That's a real issue. That's a real issue. And I've never been a reporter before, but I'm sure you get a performance appraisal. And I'm sure you know what standards they expect and the quantity and quality of work you have to produce. And if you go back to the office after this and they say, hey, the rules have changed. Here's what you have to produce, and here's what it needs to look like, and here's the medium in which it needs to be delivered, and it starts tomorrow. That's what we would be asking teachers to do.
Eric had a comment on that.
One other point, too. A lot of the teacher evaluation system is based on student growth measures. How do we evaluate student growth over 1, 2, 3 years when we're actually in the first year, the true first year of rollout of the Common Core standards? How do we, and we change that a year from now, how do we continue to build on, did that student grow in a year or not? How do you continually assess their growth when the underlying standard, the underlying concepts that they're being taught keep moving around? I would think it would be very difficult. And then from a teacher's perspective, if we roll out a new set of standards and they don't meet whatever the new achievement target is, did they really not grow a year? Did they really grow a year? And now my job's on the line with regard to that. So how many first years did the teachers need in a row? That's a big question from a professional perspective.
Here at the State House, we hear a lot of lawmakers saying that they constantly get calls from constituents saying that they're against Common Core. But in your experience, are you hearing as much pushback as they say they've been hearing?
Well, we live in a different world, and we don't get a whole lot of calls just from citizens expressing those views. But from, I think from our membership, the school board members, business officials, administrators, the calls, most of the calls we would receive would be concern for the Common Core moving a different direction. It would be a minority of calls that we would get in opposition to the Common Core. I think the profession is squarely behind moving forward with the Common Core.
Do you find that the opposition to the Common Core is being generated in your local districts and in Ohio, or is this something that's coming from outside Ohio and influencing what's happening?
Yes. Yeah, I think it's both. I think we know that there is a national driver behind this, and I think that in turn impacts folks at the local level. So it's a two-pronged approach in our estimation.
Have the local superintendents heard anything, following up on the question that was asked,